anytime you point fingers, whether it's at yourself or at other beings or other people or other structure, the very act of finger pointing means you're putting it outside of yourself. You're defining something, whether it is a very intimate pattern, like the habit of, I drink too much beer. Maybe you feel you drink too much beer. And so, this is not mine, by the way. You make that. Just a fictional one. What happens when you point fingers at that? I drink too much beer. What happens when you say that to yourself? Yeah, or whatever it is, just replace it for yourself. You don't even have to say it out loud, but you can. But just take something that you, in a sense, even if it's subtle, or even if you spiritually don't allow yourself to, that which you despise about yourself. Even subtly, just dislike.
It creates a sense of frustration or anger or like despair. They kind of like flip back and forth.
Right. Creates a, I'll just repeat it. Creates a sense of despair or anger or frustration with yourself. But what you're doing when you're pointing fingers to yourself is you're still pointing fingers. Where's the arm coming from? Who is it that is seeing or defining these patterns, even if they're within your system? Where are you pointing from? The one from which you are pointing, in that sense, is your real self. The position from which you are able to point, to see, to perceive, to be conscious of. The emptiness or the void from which the pointing comes, in a sense, is your real self. Anything you point to, thus, becomes an object, becomes objectified, becomes a them. Even, oh, my emotions disturb me, I don't want to be so emotional, or I don't want to be so reactive. Even that is placing yourself, the idea of you, as a victim to your own emotions. You're externalizing your own feelings, emotions, and reactions by calling it, that is a problem to me. So as soon as there's a finger-pointing sensation happening of any kind whatsoever, you're creating a separation between you and the very thing that you feel you're victimized by, or that is out of your control, or that is having power over you. Can you see that? Even if it's called something internally, it's still external to you. The moment you call it something, the moment you finger point, it becomes external. It doesn't really become external because all is within the same awareness. All is inseparable from that awareness. But yet when you call it by a name and you create the sensation of this has power over me and I don't like it, or I do like it and it has power over me, I'm addicted to it. The other side of that coin. You create or you impose that illusory sense of a separation between yourself and the world. So the moment you label your own habits, that becomes part of the world. It becomes part of them. Can you see that? So you're victimizing yourself even toward your own sensations. You say you're, in a sense, helpless to, victimized by, and frustrated with yourself. The moment you reference yourself and you call it yourself, you're externalizing, you're projecting that there is a self apart from the you-ness that is spontaneously now, free from self-referencing in its natural state. Does that make sense? The moment you call yourself, you're actually projecting and externalizing a self that's not there before you reference it. So in that way, in that process, you can even victimize yourself, you can even create the illusion or the idea that you, whatever the sense of the real you behind all the appearances is victimized by or out of control with the self-referenced you. Just take it in this way. Whenever you're frustrated with yourself, whenever you feel you can't accept something about yourself or you're urging to change, you're calling a part of yourself out that's not necessarily outside of yourself. But you're pushing it outside of yourself. You're projecting it outside of yourself, turning it into an object, turning it into a thing that has a certain relationship to you, or even over you, a particular control over you. Does that make sense? So in that sense, even referencing yourself in, let's say, in a negative way, in a self-judgmental way, in a self-referencing way, although it can be helpful to sometimes observe your patterns and all of that, but to call it out and then to feel victimized by it, to feel like you're a slave of your own mind, a slave of your own emotions, a slave of your own state of being, is to project that it's external to you, while it's not. It's all within yourself. It's all within awareness. It's all within you. And when you come to this place of clarity, when you come to this place within, this place of empowerment, which is naturally empowering itself at all times, because it sees there's nothing outside of itself, then the conflict of what I sometimes call activism, whether it's activism to change yourself or activism to change the world, it just sort of merges. And there's a love relationship. And from that place, you can still make changes. And you can still, if you want to, be an activist, if you want to call it that. It's not what I call it, but it could be called like that. So if you're coming from a place of love, if you're coming from a place of seeing all as the rest of yourself, then you can't really do any harm. You're inspired to do good because you see that all is the rest of yourself. And then when you witness abuse, why wouldn't you want to make a change? Of course you would want to make a change. Nevertheless, it comes with a love. Love gives rise to wisdom as well. And so when there is love, there's going to be wisdom at some point, to some extent. And so you're also going to have the wisdom to see, or to intuit, if you will, that even abuse is innately benign. It's innately positive. It is in service of the light. The dark is in service of the light. Now that's a wisdom that in a sense comes only with love. Comes only in a sense after love. When there's the love of all is the rest of myself, when there is that basic acceptance, then there's room for the wisdom of discrimination or clear differentiation, which allows for these subtle wisdoms of just seeing what is, in a sense, seeing where something comes from, and seeing positive meaning in the negative, seeing that the dark serves the light. That gives rise to the union of love and wisdom. And that's when action takes on a different flavor, takes on a different quality, and brings about different results. Results that are not based in conflict, that are not based in separation. Whenever I want to change something about myself, whether it's about my diet, my lifestyle, my physical appearance, my activities, my hobbies, whatever it is, my habits, it comes from a place of passion. I'm passionate about making that change, and so there is no self-judgment with it. I'm just passionate about seeing something that I'd like to see changed. And so it's not so much even about, oh, I want to change this. It's simply that you're passionate about a particular outcome, or a particular state of being, or a particular appearance, or a particular hobby, or action, or activity. And so you're just passionate about it. But it comes from a holistic place. It comes from a place of non-separation, a place of non-judgment, a place of acceptation. What's the word? Acceptance. There it is. It comes from a place of acceptance. So you just flow into the direction of your passion. Now if that is to join Greenpeace, by all means join Greenpeace. But what you'll notice that if you come from that state of being and you're joining Greenpeace, and you're at that motorboat with your buddies, that you'll have a greater degree of clarity than most of your surrounding people. And so you'll feel a difference, that where they are coming from a place of activism and a place of anger maybe, or like maybe even just like, I feel good about myself when I fight against killing whales, just from a very sort of, in a sense, selfish place, or an innocently selfish place of, I want to fill up this hole, so I'm going to be an activist, and people are going to love me for it, and I'm going to love myself for it. And you'll be able to witness all that and stay unmoved. And your own activism will still come from a place of love and non-separation. You see the difference between coming from a place of conflict and coming from a place of non-separation? Where you see that all is the rest of yourself? How could you apply that to your own life? How could you stop separating yourself out, referencing yourself as if you are an object? How can you relax that tendency to project yourself into this separate identity that you're witnessing, and that you're judging, and that you're changing, and that you're projecting in the first place, and then trying to enlighten that projection?